So we're going to get started in a few minutes here. Just for everybody, if you could be on mute, I'm going to open up for questions later and as we go. And I'll be admitting people as people come in here. We have over 60 now. I probably expect a few more come in as well. So today it's all going to be about just some reminders for you guys in terms of focus. I call it Focus 2021. And it's really about some ideas to think about at the beginning of the year when you're trying to think about what you want to accomplish, what you want to drive and do, how you want to make 2021 a more productive year for you and move forward faster on all the things that you want to accomplish both personally or if you're leading a team and what you'd like to have happen and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to use the acronym FOCUS. And so we're going to use acronym FOCUS for first, but right at the beginning, focus, outcomes, connect, us, and success. And I'd like to go through these things and just give you some ideas. I think some of these things are probably just reminders for some of you. But, you know, often we need reminders until we take the right level of action to make things habits. And that's what's so important when we think about making step changes in it, whatever we want to do. So that's what we're going to use today. We're going to do, I'll share some ideas through it. And then at the end, I'll open it up for questions. You can bring your video and audio online and share those things at the same time. And we'll just move forward that way. And so let me just do an introduction here. And a couple of things you think about at this time of year, you know, we're really time for, resolutions and so forth. It seems like we will try to do this, we'll try to do that. And we got to really move to doing. And what I found with everything in life, it's the time we put into investing and creating new habits and making it automatic that allows us to make a step change in performance. There's a number of gurus I read over the years who say this. We are all about one or two habits away from a step change in performance. And it's a matter of investing the time and the discipline to make that happen. And you know, one interesting thing is if you say it to yourself, or when I was leading, whenever I hear the word try, I'll try to do this by Friday. I'll try to do this. It's no really commitment behind it. So I'd say eliminate the word try from yourself and be careful when you hear that word try from other people. And it really sometimes means that they're just not going to make it happen. But what I found, it's habits that really make it happen. And I read many years ago about, Seinfeld. You know, he created that great program that ran for years and years, and he had the right comedy for his program. And so he knew that he'd have to write almost every day to create the right amount of content that he needed for all his episodes and what he wanted to trigger and the storylines and so forth. So what he did is he bought a huge calendar map for the whole year and put it up on his wall. And every day that he wrote, he put a red X. And so as he wrote every day, he would put a red X. And his goal was to never break the red chain. So keep writing every day and never break that right chain and have a hole in it. And he that's what drove him to create and to write the content for his television program. And, you know, every day he didn't want to write, but he created that habit. And there's something about, you know, sometimes we get a feeling which drives us into action. And sometimes it takes an action to drive us into the right feeling. So I'd say is that if you think about anything we're talking about today or other things that you say, well, I wish I did this or that, think about making it automatic, creating a habit and investing the time to make that happen. Okay. Now let's go through the acronym FOCUS. The first one is really a focus. And what is your most important focus? Your focus is what you want to make happen. What's your vision? You know, what is the future you want to create? I think Andy Stanley created it best here in terms of a definition for a vision. You know, it's a mental picture of what could be, the possibilities, fueled by the conviction of what should be. Well, why should I make this happen? Why should we make this happen as an organization? I think that's one of the most powerful definitions of a vision, because a powerful vision is stretching beyond what's possible. Because if it was possible and you knew exactly how to do it today, it would not be a goal or a vision, it would be a plan, because you already know how to do it. So a vision, you don't necessarily how to do it right today. So it's a possibilities, but it's fueled by why it's important to go make it happen. Why is it important for you? Why is it important for your organization to make that happen? And they always say about, Simon Sinek, start with why and everything, but the emotional fuel behind what could be is that conviction of what should be. And a lot of this is about the stories and examples. If you're leading an organization, it's the stories and examples that really engage people about the possibilities, because it triggers their own stories and examples of what this vision looks like in place and in the future. And what's interesting here too is the stories and examples you tell yourself, because often we talk ourselves into things or we talk ourselves out of things by putting up the examples or in stories in our head. And sometimes they're imaginary in terms of what we can't do and all these factors here. So keep in mind this. I think a really good place to start is getting a really clear picture with as much details as you can make on what could be and why it should be. And I think you have a much more powerful target to go make something happen. And they say is that visualization in terms of what you want to put in place and in as many details as you can is one of the most powerful things that you can do. I don't know if you've heard that expression, but they say that the most successful people in sports or business, whatever, is they've lived the achievement many, many, many times, right? They live themselves achieving it. And when they sometimes when they end up achieving that vision, it's kind of like not the big event, because they've been doing that all the time because of the way they visualized it. Okay. So keep in mind this, if you really want to be a powerful leader and get people to adopt a vision, you've got to have your own stories and examples behind why you want to make this happen. And then you have to develop stories and examples that your people can see themselves within it and create their own stories and examples about what that future represents. And that's really when you have the power of influence, is when you can influence people to create their own stories and examples within that vision that you're trying to drive. Okay, so keep in mind this. And what I'd say is that if you really want to take more action towards the vision, got to be living the achievement of that vision, the visualization of that every single day. I think one of the gurus one time says, we should be writing out our goals or writing out a description of our vision every day, because it's going to go into our head much stronger. Okay. Now, the second thing around this too is that, you have two choices. You picture that vision about where you want to go, and you can say to yourself, hey, that's me. Visualize the future in detail, creating the habits of the new you that can go make that happen. Or you could say, that's not me. I can't do that. And you end up doing nothing. And so what I found is that probably the trick of this is to start living the future you that you'd like to be today. Okay. And I heard an interesting story a while ago. It was a very famous sales speaker and trainer. And I forget his name right now, but he did a training, and in the front row was a very young salesperson. And he enjoyed the session so much. He comes up after the training and he says, I enjoyed your training so much. Do you have a phrase that I could use to motivate myself each day to go make things happen? He says, I don't have a phrase, but I have a question. He said, every day, ask yourself one question. Ask this: how would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? Okay. How would the person I'd like to be, the achievement, do the things I'm about to do? And then do it that way. would the person you'd like to be procrastinate? Would they put this off, or would they take action right away? So what happened is he gave that question to that young salesperson. 5 years later, he went back to the same company, not doing a training, but a sales, like a motivational talk at the sales awards. The number one salesperson was the person sitting in the front row 5 years earlier. And so he forgot him, but he said to him, "How did you achieve such tremendous success this year?" He says, "5 years ago, you gave me this one question. How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do?" And he said, "All I did was ask myself that question every day and start acting like the person you want to be." So keep in mind this. Once you have that picture about what you want to achieve this year, say, who's the person that I need to be in order to create that, and start living that person today, from today. And as one guru said, I love this at the bottom there, it says, you're being that person today. And so if you don't feel you're that person yet or not, but basically you're telling the truth in advance, right? That's the person you're going to be when you start behaving that way. So, you can also think your way into a new way. You can also start behaving that way, and then you'll start to change your mindset as well. So keep in mind the vision, yourself. The other thing that's very interesting about your focus is I found this. Every person can choose between good and bad when they're focused. They say, that's bad, I shouldn't be doing it. That's good, I could be doing it. What I found is the people who achieve a lot are very good at choosing between great and good. Now, choosing between good and bad is very easy, but choosing between great and good is not so easy, because we don't like to give up good things and just reduce ourselves. It's like when you're in a business and you don't want to niche yourself because you just think of all these other opportunities. But it's the great which uses our strengths and our passions. In other words, our sweet spot. It's the great that uses the best of us to go make things happen. It's the great that will create your future faster. So you got to let go of some things as you go that way. And as a famous guy told a story one time for me, I thought was really good. He said a famous sculptor coming into a studio, and his sculptor's assistant coming behind with a big block of marble for him to work on, and it was very dirty, dusty, disfigured. He couldn't imagine him creating anything good out of this. So he says, "What are you going to make out of this? I can't imagine anything beautiful coming from it." So he looks at it from every angle, the sculpture, and he says, "I see a magnificent stallion, a horse, flowing mane, flared nostrils, very muscular." But the sculptor's assistant said, "But how are you going to make that horse?" He says, "I'm going to take my chisel and I'm going to take my hammer and I'm going to chip away and chip away and chip away everything that's not a horse. And what's left over will be a masterpiece." I think, if you're on this session today, you probably have some energy to go make things happen. You're going to be creative about different things you want to do. You're always going to have more ideas that you can execute. The goal is to get rid of some of the good ideas so that you can put the right time and resources on the great ideas to move that future forward faster. So keep in mind that, and we'll talk a little later today about this, but focus is not about addition. Focus is about subtraction. And Michael Dell said it really well. He said, a great strategy, the key component of a great strategy is not what you're going to do. A key component of a great strategy is deciding what you're not going to do in order to put the right resources on what you should be doing. Okay? So keep in mind that one. And the last thing here is that, the vision, what could be, what should be, and what you really want to accomplish, it really needs to become a dominant thought. In other words, you need to really make it a dominant thought in you so it reaches your subconscious mind. Okay? So, when I was doing my sessions all the time, I always ask this question. And I'll ask that question for you. Probably if you heard me before speak and everything, I asked you, but type into the chat function here. What percentage of what you do every day, your habits, your behaviors and everything, what percentage of what you do every day is driven by your conscious mind? Okay? Type into the chat function here. What percentage do you think is driven by your conscious mind? So we have 10 to 20%, 10%. How about the rest of you? A couple say small, 20%. A couple you heard me before, probably 70%. So yeah, guys, would you believe it's only 2 to 4% is driven consciously? The rest is subconsciously. And I'll prove it to you with one single question. Can you tell me your next thought? Probably not, right? It just pops into your head. So, think about this, whatever becomes a dominant thought is hitting your subconscious mind. You're using the 96 to 98% of you versus only the 2 to 4% of you. That's why it's so important to create things as a habit, because your habits reside in your subconscious mind. So what I found with the most successful leaders is they're great at creating dominant thoughts in their people, plant the dominant thoughts and keep coming back and watering it. In other words, keeping it strong. That's why when you hear a great song and you've been listening to a song or you've been listening to a record over and over again, you start singing a song from that album, in the shower and everything, because it hits and it reaches you beyond just consciously and it pops up. So what I would say to you is that think about how should you remind you? Because the more you remind yourself, the more you make this a dominant thought, the more you're going to see opportunities to go make it happen. It's like when you buy a new car, you're happy for about a week and then you see your car everywhere and you say, damn, I thought I had a unique car. It seems like everybody's got the same one. So keep in mind this, what you think about comes about. And so make the dominant thought of what you want to achieve versus the dominant thought of what you can't make happen. Okay. So it's unbelievable how powerful this is. And I would say just one question to ask yourself is, what's the best way for you to remind you? Right? And put it in front of you all the time so you can go make it happen. Right? So that's the focus. Now let's talk about outcomes. If you ever heard me talk, I always talk about outcomes in everything I do. And it's so important because outcomes really is the language of achievement. When you think in outcomes for yourself or you're speaking outcomes, you're thinking in a language of achievement. When you're just thinking in activities, you're thinking in a language of business. And what I found is this, when you have very clear outcomes, you'll always try to find the shortest way there. And so it's so important to think in outcomes because it drives your creativity to get there faster. And I found with very, very successful people, including successful leaders and organizations, they're only thinking of two things as the ultimate outcomes to drive forward: direction and pace. Where we're going, that vision we want to create, and the pace we want to get there. I read a number of stories about Elon Musk over the last few weeks and so forth, how he puts really tough timelines on things because he challenges people and to think differently and do things differently. So I've never seen a successful person or an organization that didn't have a sense of urgency. In other words, has that pace. And if you're leading people or for yourself and you're trying to set yourself up to make stuff happen, give yourself some milestones, right? And say, I got to hit this milestone. Yeah, things happen, struggles happen, things get delayed and so forth. But for me, I said I was going to do this by Friday. I'm going to do this by Friday. I'm going to find a way. Because every time you slip on a milestone, you're just pushing the future into the future. So I found that the best way is to keep those outcomes in your head, because the more the outcomes are clear, the more you're going to use your own creativity to make it happen. The more the outcomes are clear, the more you're going to speak to others in such clarity to get their help to make that happen. So if you think about it, there's two lists that are very, very powerful that you could use to really think about outcomes and progress and pace. And if you read the book Getting Things Done, he talks a lot about outcomes and those. But what I found, there's two powerful lists to keep things moving forward. First is not a to-do list. It's an outcomes list. What outcomes do I need to achieve, big or small, that's going to help me move forward on the vision faster? And so outcomes are going to take a number of activities, going to take you plus others to go make it happen. But when the outcomes are clear, you're communicating to others in the language of achievement. You're giving yourself, something to go make happen, and it's not just the activities. But the often thing that's what's missing is the very next actions to go make it happen. Because often in business or anything else, the very next action is something small step. Sometimes it's a call to make, it's an email to send. It's something that's very small, but you put it off. It's like before we had the lockdown on haircuts and everything. If I say to myself, need a haircut, it's not in a specific action. But if I don't write down, call hairdresser, and then I call 2 weeks later and she's on holiday, then, it just doesn't happen. So think about it for yourself. Once you're very clear on the outcomes, what's the very next action that will keep it moving forward? If you have a big goal, you're going to need other people. The faster you get other people involved, the faster things happen. So, the minute you say, I need to have such and such, call them up right away. Send an email right away. Don't wait. If you wait till the next day, you've lost 24 hours on these things. So it's a great combination of lists to have there. Outcomes you want to achieve, which triggers your creativity and gets others involved, and the very, very next action to make it happen. When I was in business, when I was leading in the corporate world, I only had a few key next actions all the time. I had to call someone, SMS someone, message someone, see someone, do a quick action for myself, and then pass it on and get people to act on it. So there's so many things that you can do to make things forward, and it's not a lot of time. It's just that you have to do those things right away. So hopefully I convinced you on that one. And then the final thing around this on outcomes again, and I'll reinforce this message because it's so important, is focus is about subtraction, not addition. And you live your life within your sweet spot is when you're really focused on those outcomes that are around the great ones and not just the good. Okay, so it's about maintaining your focus that way. And the list of outcomes, they should be getting you faster towards that vision, because if it's not connected with your vision, why is it so important for you to do that? So remember, keep in focus that vision. Think about the outcomes that are making it happen, and chip away the things that shouldn't be there. Okay. Now, so that's the O. Now let's talk about connect. And connect means you're going to have to engage other people to help you make things happen. And I found that the real connection is the feeling. And if you think about it, the outcome of communication and engaging people, it's really getting other people to think, feel, and do, right? That's really when you want to engage others. But it's really the feeling that grabs them and gets them involved much more. And there's two things that we can really do to engage others very well, is that we need to listen to people more, because when we listen to people, they feel valued. You think about it, when someone doesn't listen to you, you don't feel valued. You're not engaged. So we need to be better at asking questions and getting other people to articulate it. And, instantly they feel valued. The other thing is very interesting is that when you get other people talking, they feel great, because people will always want to talk about themselves, or they want to do more of the talking. They also remember the conversation with you a lot more too often when they were doing some of the talking well, because they have that feeling, oh, this was a great conversation. You really listened to me. And the second one is stories and examples. Stories and examples are a powerful way to make something relevant for other people, because our memory, our experiences. A story or an example is an experience. So when we hear stories and examples from other people, we tend to trigger to a similar experience in our own life. And then we engage people tremendously. So, like if I told you a story or an example, you would see the emotion of me telling it. But if I have something that relates to you in your own life, now you're not only getting the emotion of me telling it, I'm grabbing the emotion from your own experience and making it highly, highly relevant. So what I found is that you think about this, if you really want to achieve more, you have to talk less and you have to ask better questions. You have to ask better questions, do a lot more listening, and sharing a lot more stories and examples. And if I come back to the beginning of the session, those stories and examples that describe the future you want to create, that's the fuel for your engaging and connecting with people. Because the more that you can describe stories and examples in ways that they can see themselves a part of it, you're going to grab their attention much, much more. So if you think about it too, is that we're all different, okay? And if you think about taking a DISC survey or the personality test, there's 4 different personalities of the world, and that of people, and then you take into account cultures and different norms and things like that. And so, everybody's different. So if we're talking to everybody like we like to be talked to, we're missing, at least 75% of the world. So we need to be consistently different, and we need to be constantly adapting ourselves. And here's what I found. We have more influence with others when we adapt before forcing others to adapt to us. Now, if you're leading and you have a certain style of leadership and everything, it's important to have your people adapt to you. But if you're trying to influence peers or you're trying to influence someone to do something, you better adapt first, because that's where you get your leverage and your approach. And so what I found is that we need to adapt for greater influence and collaboration with others. And we need to learn to package our message for the different personalities there. So if you're talking to a relator, you're going to have to talk more from a feeling perspective. If you're talking to a socializer, you have to be more animated with energy, or they're not taking you seriously. If you're talking to a thinker, you got to add more facts and more rationale behind it. And if you're talking to a director type, and many directors on the session today, you got to be short, concise in that way. So keep in mind this. And the only thing to reinforce here is that think about adapting first, than forcing others, because you always get influence and leverage that way. And I'll give you a tip. The best way I found to adapt is and to engage others, if you think about what we just talked about before in creating a feeling, is to use stories and examples, but then tell them in a different way. For the thinker, add more facts. For the socializer, be more animated. For the relator, add more aspects of feeling, engagement, and things like this. So what I found is you want always in business, or at least for yourself, to get a double win. So by using the story or the example, it allows you to adapt and tell it in a different way, but also you're engaging people, you're making it personal, and you're making it highly relevant. Okay, so keep in mind that. And here's a good sort of outcome or goal for you in terms of really reinforcing this. Is think about, it's not about you, it's about them when you're engaging others, and leave people feeling taller. Make it about them. Leave people feeling motivated, feeling engaged, feeling with pride, so they'll take more action on what you want them to take. And they feel much more part of it that way. And I thought that's quite a good, outcome or target for when we connect with others and we try to make things happen. So that's a good one to keep in mind. Now, we've talked about this a lot, but it's so important. If you're going to engage and connect with people, you want to engage in people around you and really have a team around you. And I don't know if you've seen some of my programs and so forth, but I often ask people, and if you're a leader, once you know what you want to do and why you want to do it and by when you want to achieve it, what's your next thought? And often when I ask that in big groups, often half the room says how. And I found that the most successful leaders, the most successful influencers do not think how, they think who, right? Because if you don't have a who, the who is always you, and it's only you. The faster you get someone else involved, the faster they can help you move things forward that way. The faster you get someone else involved, the more brain power you get on the idea and the possible solutions, and you get a better solution that way. And I'll give you a tip. Whenever you're thinking about moving something forward and doing something maybe you haven't done before, it's worth making a phone call to someone who's done it. They'll give you some advice that'll save you hours, and maybe a 5-minute conversation could save you hours or days that way. So I found that when I was observing, especially with executives or others, when you're in a meeting and they don't necessarily have all the information themselves, they're going to engage somebody else quickly. They'll say, call such and such in, call such and such in, arrange a phone call with such and such. Because, why should you struggle with something that someone else might know that way? So keep in mind that, and that, I say for all of us, whether we're leaders or not, whenever we're clear about what and why and when, who can help us? Who has some knowledge about it? Who can help us grow faster? Success is who, not how. Right? If you think about it, you only have 24 hours in a day. So your how is really, really limited if you think by yourself. It's how you engage the who's around you to go make it happen. There's a very famous preacher in the States, T.D. Jakes. And, he's created movies. He has an unbelievable number of books and everything. He says, show me your phone. Show me the contacts and the quality of your contacts in your phone, and I'll tell you your net worth. I can guess about your range of your net worth. And so it's so important to think about it. Success is a team sport. So think who. And if you think about this, that's all about asking for input or advice. Think about it. If I ask you for input advice, you feel good because, someone asking your opinion, your input, your advice, and so forth. So when you ask for input and advice for people, you're making them feel good, but also you're getting information to move forward faster. And there was a guy who created the X Prize many years ago. I think it's Peter Diamandis, I think it is. If you read any of his books or read him, he's a fascinating guy to listen to because he's very, very future oriented. And he learned it from a friend, in fact, but he learned it from experience when he was out asking for money. He found this: if I asked for money, I got advice. If I asked for advice, I got money. And what I found is a lot of times people are reluctant to ask, right? And so, thing is that you're going to be behind people who aren't afraid to ask for input or ask for advice and move forward. But here's another power behind this. Once you ask someone for input or advice, or you especially ask someone who's successful for input or advice, they want their advice or input to be successful too. So they'll often try to help you. And so if you're asking them to be a part of something and you get some input and you use their input as part of the solution, it's our natural tendency to support the whole solution that way. So what I found is that you get a double win. When you're asking for input and advice, you're growing faster. Your knowledge and everything is growing faster, but people are more willing to help you implement what you've asked about. So even if you don't need the input, even if you don't need the advice, go and ask for it, because the benefits of getting their help making it happen are just unbelievable. So sometimes it's important to invest some time in that little conversations to ask for that advice. And just to reiterate here, it's really about building a strong team around you. It always takes more than you. Think who, ask for input, advice, and you can move things forward a lot faster. Okay. So hopefully you're getting some ideas here. One more thing we're going to cover, and then we're going to open it up for questions as well. And the last one is really success. When I was leading people, I often would ask my key people every so often, I'd say, how can I help you to be even more successful? Because sometimes I'm doing something that's slowing them down. And, I wanted to know what I was doing to slowing them down. But, to a certain extent, I wanted to know, how did they define success? Right? So as everybody defines success in a different way. We all have a different definition of what success is. And so it's so important to have a clear definition of what success is for yourself. And I think it's important to ask that of some key people around you as well, because if you can match their definition of success and engage them in that way, you're going to be much more powerful as well. So keep that in mind as a question to ask your people, especially your best people. How can I help you to be even more successful? And those words are very powerful now, because even more has an implication that they're already successful and you're going to help them be even more. But what I found is a good definition of success here is this one. Success is both a destination and a journey, right? It's what you want to achieve in your life, but then it's how you want to live your life in the process of achieving it. In other words, achieving what you want and enjoying the trip. And I found you need both, right? If you don't have a powerful destination, if you don't have a powerful vision, you won't use your potential. There's not a drive to pull you to use your potential. But if you make it only about the destination, you don't get to enjoy the journey, right? So I found that you need both. And I found in life, life is never an or. It's always an and, right? You can't say success is only the job and then, forget about the home. Or you can't say success is only my home and there's nothing about what you want to use your potential or the destination and so forth. So I found that the most successful people have a strength of character to do the right thing for the and. Right. And for success, it's the destination, what you want to achieve, but it's the journey. It's kind of like how you want to live your life in the process of achieving it and enjoying the trip. And I think the best journey is enjoying life, but also using more of your potential as you go. And one thing to think about too is that a lot of times people say I need to work on my skills, I need to work on my habits, and so forth. But the other thing that people forget sometimes is working on your belief. Because if your belief is not equal to the size of your potential, you won't use it. So if you don't believe that you have that potential, you logically you see it, but the belief isn't there, you're not going to use it. So I'd say is that once you have a clear destination and a journey, reinforce the belief below that to go make it happen. And then the other thing here is, it's about your potential. So the more you grow, the more your potential grows along with it. Think of potential like the horizon. If you're out for a walk, the horizon keeps moving. And the more you grow, the more you advance, the more your potential will be there. So I would say is that a good goal is to use more and more of your potential each day as you can. And so, keep that as a dominant thought, what your potential is. It's going to have to stretch you. It's going to stretch you out of your comfort zone. But if you think about it this way, if you're always comfortable, okay, if you're always comfortable, are you actually growing? No, I don't think so, right? So, a good goal sometimes is to be comfortable being slightly uncomfortable. And that means you're always going to be growing. And that's why a lot of times people always want to learn something new. Or I know one very successful person who basically tries to create 2 habits every year, 2 new quality habits every year, and that's their focus. So keep in mind that, and keep in mind this, size matters when it comes to your thinking. In other words, create a vision worthy of the potential that's inside of you. So, that's a very good sort of comparison sometimes. Is my vision or my goals are worthy of the potential that's in me? because you know, if you're setting your goals too small, you're certainly not going to use your potential inside there. So here's another tip for you. If you're leading people, you know, talk potential with them, because if they don't have an idea of what their potential is and you give them difficult things to do, they're going to push back on you because they don't think they can handle it. So what I found is that, you know, especially for your best people, keep growing in the size of their potential, what they have in them. Of course, you have to balance it with giving them humility around it. But what I found is a potential, and pride is an energy. So the more they see that they can do it, the more they're going to take on too. So that's a couple things. And finally, and then I'll open up for reflection and some questions. The last two things I found is very important here. You know, we all have a passion. We all have an idea about what we want to achieve and what we want to do. But it's also the discipline that really enables a passion to take action, to make things happen. And so, you know, there's always two sides to our success. It's our passion about what we want to do and create, but it takes that discipline. You know, like Seinfeld, you know, putting the red X and never breaking the chain. We have to say, what is the discipline that you're lacking today that really could take off, help you take off, you know, the achievements for this year? You know, what could use more of your potential? And the other thing is, we mentioned in terms of connecting with people and us, is that you always need to be in the mode of influencing, because you need people around you if you're going to achieve anything great. And, you know, you need people around you who, by helping them achieve what they want, they're going to help you achieve what you want. So I'd say there's two things I found with very successful people is they know where they need to apply their discipline, because it's not an unlimited resource. It has limitations in terms of that. So they know first where they're going to apply the discipline. And two, they know they always have to be growing their influencing skills, because that's their way to get more people around them, and teamwork. Okay. So those are the key things. Now I'd like you to do just, I'll open it up here, and I'll open up the video and the screen and everything so I can see everybody. Take 2 minutes now, do a reflection. What do you take away from today? What actions could you take away from today? What do you pick up some ideas that you could use from today? And how could you apply it to your life? Okay, so take a minute or two, write down a few things that you take away from today. Paul, that's a great quote there you put in the chat function. It's a matter of using your potential each day, so you're reaching you're on your way towards a destination. That's very good. So hopefully you take something away. Now, can I ask you guys a question? You're doing the chat function. What's the most important thing you take away from today? Can you type it into the chat function so everybody can see what you're taking away, and some ideas that you're taking away from today? So type into the chat function the most important takeaway from today. Subtraction, good and great, yeah. Person rate, picture the vision, focus, new habits, mental picture of what could be, yeah. Dominant thoughts, Julia, that's very important, yeah. Think who? Focus is subtraction, yeah. Commit to do, think who? Leave people feeling taller. That's a good one. Good. Rena has another question. How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? Very, very powerful, especially for procrastination, right? Yeah. future vision, a regular reminder. Yeah, I can't reinforce this enough. What becomes your dominant thoughts drives the action you take. So, what is the best way for you to remind you? Okay. So I open up for questions. You can just put your video on and shout them out, or also you can type them into the chat function. Any questions, comments on the things we covered today?
I have a question.
Yes.
And thank you, first of all. I've been
Yeah.
to a few of your trainings, and today, for some reason, everything just clicking. All of a sudden, I've heard some things a few times, but today I kind of really heard them. So thanks for that. Um, I was wondering about, you said develop stories and examples of the future for your people. I was wondering if you have an example of what one might look like.
Yeah, I mean, like the one of the most powerful one is, the experience you want to create. If you're a company, what is the experience you want to create for your customer? You know, what do you want your customers to feel that way? I'll give you an example for me. Uh, Fortnum and Mason. I use Fortnum and Mason to send gifts all over the world to clients and things because it's the experience I want them to get of opening something up from Fortnum and Mason and seeing the quality.
Mm.
However, a person came to me, one of my friends sent me a gift from Fortnum and Mason, but the gift was chocolate and champagne, but there was no chocolate in it. The card was for some other client, and the delivery note was for some other delivery.
Oh.
So I complained to Fortnum and Mason because I use them a lot. And now I probably can't use Fortnum and Mason anymore because I don't trust they will create the experience.
Mm.
So the most powerful way to engage people is talk about the experience your clients will have, and then they can see how they contribute to creating and making that experience happen.
So really envisioning the outcome in a way.
Envisioning the outcome, or tell a story about how it shouldn't happen, like I just described with Fortnum and Mason. Yeah,
Right. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. Anybody else? So there's a question from Chris about, indirect, direct, open, guarded, and the 4 personality types. Yeah, I think, there's a great author and speaker, Tony Alessandra, in the States. And he uses these 4 personality types. He has different names. I think this about the names I said. And he has a document that he created and he sells on his website. It's not expensive at all. PDF, and it describes how you need to change and adapt your behavior to the 4 personality types in selling, negotiating, in any type of interactions. And so what I found is that's one of the most instrumental things that I've used over the years. But it's for sure I'm using stories and examples that way. Now, question here: how do you break the cycle of dominant thought of a negative one? Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. Uh, Good thinking pushes out bad thinking. So if you have a dominant thought on negative thinking, you have to reinforce by constantly putting on the positive. And let me ask you a question. Type in the chat function. Have any of you guys ever heard about affirmations? Say yes or no. Any of you heard about affirmations? Yeah. Affirmations, it's very interesting. Affirmations is the thinking part, is the belief and thinking part of habits. So if you think of a habit, you're doing something, it becomes automatic. The affirmations is the thinking and believing part. So if I say I am a successful entrepreneur, I enjoy dinners every day at this or da 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 da. If you make affirmations and you constantly play it in your head, or you record it, listen to it, or you read it out every day, you're creating the pathways around that. Now, the key is that it has to be in the present tense. It can't say I will be. You have to say, I am. Remember what I said about bringing the future me to today? And so affirmations are a great way to do that too. And you know, they always say it's like brainwashing. It's not really like brainwashing. It's that, you know, a habit is basically that you create neural pathways so strong that it's stronger than anything else that you did. So that's why you cannot break a habit. You can only create a new habit that has stronger pathways than the old one. And so, what I found is affirmations are very powerful. If you want to learn about the best person about this, there's a guy named John Assaraf. He wrote a book called The Answer. He is the best in the world at marrying quantum physics, or the thinking part, with business, because he built $1 billion business, and he also studied the brain and everything else. He's the best at putting them both together in a language that you can understand as a business person. So there's a great book called The Answer on that to do that. Any other questions, comments? There's one here about how do you show people you're a good listener? I'll tell you, it's the follow-up question. The follow-up question, when you ask a follow-up to something, it proves that you were listening, and it also goes deeper in terms of what people are going to talk about. And if you're really interested. And the other thing is about, here's an interesting one, giving compliments. A lot of times, you know, people just say, hey, you did a great job. It's superficial. Did a great job. Second thing, say to them, well, why did they do a great job? Oh, I thought you really did a great at this. Give them an example. Now it becomes more meaningful. Then you can make it even more powerful and say, now you did this and I thought it was really good. How did you do that? Now you make it even, the compliment, even more powerful. So 3 things around a compliment. Share the compliment. You did a great job on this. Second thing, give them an example. Then ask them about how they made that happen. And now your compliments are very sincere, or what you're saying and the questions are very sincere as well. Okay. Hey, any other questions that I take verbally? Took some from the chat function. Time for one more question. Any others? So let me ask you a question of you guys. On a scale 1 to 10, how valuable was today for you guys? 9, 10? Yeah, good, good. So what I've done is I recorded this session so everybody can get a copy of this, and I'll send it out, as well as I'll send out the slides and everything. The only last thing to do is I'll give you an offer that I give for everybody, okay? For a lot of my clients, and when I do different programs, I offer for 6 weeks some daily reminders via WhatsApp. And so if you really like to have some daily reminders, all you have to do is send me an email with your name and mobile number. I'll create a special group for this session. And for the next 6 weeks, the weekdays, I'll send you a reminder. It'll be an illustration or an idea or whatever. But what I found is this, is that everybody will attend something here. They'll get an insight. But if you're not reminded of it, you don't take enough action, and it doesn't stick long enough to create a habit. Okay? So, you know, for some of you on the line, you've been part of my programs and you've had those daily reminders too. So keep in mind that if you like to have it, just send me an email with your name and mobile number, and I'll create a special group for this session. And then next 6 weeks, I'll send a reminder.